Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Patreon patrons, YouTube subscribers, and those who stumble across this video. Welcome to another exciting edition of Johnston Blackhorse's Sketchbook Tours with me, your host, Johnston Blackhorse. Come with me and you'll see sketchbooks full of pure imagination. Okay, that's enough of that. Anyway, I wish I would have reviewed some of these sketchbooks or like gone through them beforehand, because I think this sketchbook came before the previous one in my sketchbook tour series. But yeah, that's my bad. Anyway, as you can see, it's another large size sketchbook, so this will probably be another two-parter, and it's pretty old, as you can tell from the addition of all this duct tape attempting to hold the bindings together. All right. Well, without I guess further ado, let's begin this sketchbook tour. Here you will see a conceptual sketch and idea for my high school character, who I revealed earlier in previous sketchbook tours as a character that I created in high school. I do believe this one is Natus, as he does not have a notch taken out of his ear, and it looks like it was drawn in purple pencil and inked with a felt tip brush pen. Brush pens are pretty fun to play with, and I suggest that I highly recommend that you purchase one or maybe a set and just play around with it, because just the manner of inking and the texture or styles that you can get from it are pretty fun to experiment with. So yeah, check it out. And here, again, get a little sketch of Natus again up here. And just me just getting familiar with the brush pen, writing my name or signature, just playing around with different lines and strokes, as you can see. Here we have anatomical studies and eye studies. I remember I did draw these out of maybe a fashion magazine or a swimsuit magazine. But yeah, I did utilize reference in order to draw these eyes, just to get familiar with how to draw and render eyes. And these, I believe, I got from an anatomy book, just getting familiar with how to draw like muscle structures and like how these muscles flex and contort as they're utilized in as they're making these different poses. Here we have more anatomy studies. Getting to know how to draw like anatomy and body and muscle structure is just very ideal when you want to convey like your character has like some sort of realism to them. And some of the more difficult muscle groups to draw, for me personally, are like the muscles that are on the back, and just the muscles that make up like I guess they go into the armpit, because when you're drawing the muscles that go up into that area, you got your deltoid, your bicep, your tricep. Yeah, even though I might be good at drawing some muscles, I don't know many of their names, but it's pretty interesting, like how like a lot of these muscles will like fold into each other and just like just wrap around each other, especially in around the joint areas, and like when they get tucked under into the armpit here. It's very challenging in order to conceptualize how all of that just meshes together, and takes a lot of study and practice in order to be able to draw a lot of these muscle groups correctly. And if you want realism in your got a nude figure here. Let me just cover that up. And if you want to learn how to draw like realistic characters, I do highly recommend you pick up like muscle magazines or anatomical or anatom anatomy books and um, anatomy books for artists because it's I highly encourage that you study and practice these muscle structures and such in order to attain a more realistic aspect of how you go about building your characters and rendering them, and just a generalized understanding of like how all these muscles and the body structure will form and contort and just how everything just fits together, so you can shade, render, and just build very believable characters, especially when you get to um, put them in different poses in order to convey like a body language when a character is like, say this character for instance, she seems to be in um, in a form of ecstasy or passion. This is like some sort of demon chick, like she's got demon wings, horns, and cloven hooves for feet, and pretty gnarly claws. But oh, and I guess there's a tail down here. But just fitting her together and just getting that body language and especially like the expression on her face, you can tell that she's in some throes of passion of some sort. I don't know, perhaps she's a succubus or something like that. And here we have just random like female face sketches. As you can see, like these are pretty old sketches compared to what I am able to produce now. Um, Looking back at my old art, I can see like a lot of the flaws that I had to work my way out of in order to attain the ability that I have now. And that's just one of the things that you have to do as an artist is like as you continue to produce artwork and continue to draw and sketch, you have to be critical of your own work. You have to be objective of your own capabilities, and just when you're viewing a sketch or a drawing or a rendering, you have to acknowledge where you need work and where your faults lie. Otherwise, you'll never get better. And I've seen a lot of artists just plateau because they believe that they have attained the pinnacle of their capabilities or skill. And that's just the wrong way of going about creating artwork or good art. And especially if you want to market yourself as a illustrator or artist of I guess any caliber. Like as an artist, you just never stop working, and there's always practice that you need to do in order to stay on top of your game. And like I said before, is just as an artist, there are always new techniques to learn, and there's like always something to build upon. So if you get stuck in a mindset to where you think or you believe that you're at the zenith point of your capabilities, try another approach. Try like a different viewpoint. Play around with like another medium, because I do believe like if you get stuck in that mindset, then your artwork will never advance past a certain point because you created that barrier for yourself. And in order to tear down that barrier, you just got to take a step back and just try another approach. And that's all I have to say about that subject. Because like as you can see here from my old artwork, I can see like a lot of flaws here. For some of the flaws I can point out is like this female character, her face is just kind of going off into a weird um, deformed tangent here, and this ear is just kind of set to, well, like you can see that her whole head is just skewed, and not only just like one skew, it's just like if you look at it at a three-dimensional uh, point of view and just try to analyze it in that sense, like it's not only skewed that way, but somehow it seems to be skewed this way, like especially in her forehead area right here. And in this one, her eyes are just too far apart. Um, like if you go to some of my art lessons, and then you'll see that one of the generalized guidelines that I usually go by is that the uh, outward edges of the nostrils, or the edge of the nose here, usually would line up to the inner corners of the eye. And as you can see here, that is not the case, and her eyes are just too far apart for the size of her nose. And in this one here, it's just I feel like her head is just too elongated. Like her nose is just too long for like the rest of her face, and I just don't like how rounded it is. It's just too uh, I guess just too round for me. Like it's not angular enough. Like it just, even though it's somewhat realistic, it's just too unnatural. And that's what I'm talking about when like you look back at your work and you're just able to critique your own stuff. And when you're able to critique your own work and just come at it at an analytical standpoint of like where you need to work on certain parts of your drawing or your artwork or your technique, that's really the best way of just being able to help yourself advance, just by being your own worst critic. Because if you take your artwork to a loved one or anyone who might be a fan, of course they're always going to say like, "Oh, that's the best drawing I've ever seen," or like, "You're pretty good," or just generic comment that a lot of artists always get thrown at them, is like, "Oh, you show your artwork to somebody and they say like, oh, that's better than I can do. I can't even draw stick figures." So in trying to get honest critique, and if you don't have any artists like around to help critique your work, you have to be your own critic. And um, and that's like probably one of the best ways you can really advance in your work. Here's a marker sketch. Looks like I went in there with some colored pencils and just this is just me playing around with like different mediums and utilizing mixed mediums in order to play around with colors and just like experiment and more or less just have fun with what I'm trying to do in creating like an illustration, or um, creating an image with some form of impact. And I do encourage like you mess around with other mediums, like yeah, pencil and um, graphite is probably like the cheapest medium that you can afford. You just go to like a store and just grab a bunch of number 2 pencils and you just practice like that. But when you want to expand in your artwork, it's nice to like just go out and just buy a bunch of art supplies, be them like inking pencils or brush pens, like I said earlier, or just like these colored markers. And I believe that these markers might actually be Sharpie markers. You don't have to go out and like buy like a really expensive set of Prismacolors or Copics, because those are really expensive. And if it's just something that you want to dabble in, like you can spend 10 or 15 bucks on a pack of like Sharpies, or just other markers of that sort, or even like color variations of highlighters. I've played around with those and like just getting to know how to utilize a different medium, and just like as you can see here, I mixed colored pencil with marker. So it's just something to play with and something to keep in mind. Just like go out there, buy some cheap markers, and see what you can make of it. And it's just pretty fun to just like play around and experiment and just see what really works for you, especially when you're constantly using pencils in order to learn how to make art. It's also fun to just like go out and just buy like different mediums and just like see how that feels for you. And who knows, maybe if you pick up some watercolors, you'll like find that you're a fantastic watercolor artist. So if you want to pursue art, and uh, and if that's something you're passionate about, I do highly recommend that you like just really explore the world that can open up to you in different mediums: pencils, colored pencils, watercolors, markers. Just there's just like a whole wide range of things you can utilize. And I've heard tell that there's a guy who makes a graphic novel, and he uses women's makeup, and it's pretty interesting. Like just grabbing any sort of like writing utensil around you, be it makeup or or highlighters, and just being able to create art from that. And yeah, it's not just limited to just like stationary supplies or art supplies. Like you can utilize anything around you that can like make a mark. And there's a guy I worked with in a previous company who would make who would make teabag art. And what I mean by that is that he would make tea at work, and then he would take the tea bags and just start painting with the tea bag. And he made some pretty interesting. Well, he got some pretty interesting results from it, and it's something that I would often think about utilizing myself. And going through the prison system, like I even ran into an artist who utilized food in order to create like different colors, and like utilizing like coffee to create like skin tones and such. And it's a pretty interesting concept to just like you're not just limited to art supplies. You can play play around with anything that you think that might create some sort of like interesting tone or color. So just yeah, play around with that. And here you'll have, in here in this sketchbook, you see Natus along with Jack. Jack's the one with the notch out of his ear. He's the insane one. Natus is the really serious guy. And I did have like a whole story and conceptual idea of like these guys just fucking duking it out. Like the story wasn't too coherent. It was just an excuse to just have these like badass action scenes with guns and kung fu fighting, and a lot of sci-fi aspects to it. And maybe if I have time to come back to it someday, maybe I will just revisit these characters. But as things are now, I just want to try to make money how I can. And yeah, here's another piece with those two together. Yeah, this definitely is like a older sketchbook compared to the one that I did a video of before, because these characters I drew a lot when I was in high school. So I think this sketchbook might be one of my high school sketchbooks, because it was in high school where I drew these characters a lot. Oh, and here's that mad scientist Shazbat, or Shazbat, and he had his own comic strip series in my high school newspaper, which I was a chief editor on. Maybe if I can find those old comic strips, I can bring them out and post them. I don't know. I don't know where they're at this point. Maybe I'll stumble upon them during these sketchbook tours. Here's just another random page of sketches. Here's a pretty interesting piece. Some sort of bomber man with bombs that have character faces on them. I thought it was pretty cool, and just like playing around with again, like looks like to be another brush pen, and utilizing that brush pen to just like make different stroke weights and such, just to get these different effects. I really like how I can like just draw smoke and different effects like that, and just getting used to being able to cross hatch, as you can see in the jacket here and on the pants and in the coat arm. Just really fun to play with. Here we have more random sketches. I think this is a French gray marker, and what's interesting here is that I guess it looks like over time, I don't know if you can really see it, over time the French gray just kind of bled out over and past these lines, because I remember when I drew it, I stayed within these lines, but it looks like over time, like the French grays just kind of bled out throughout the page. Here we have more just random doodles and sketches. It looks like over time again, like the French gray just bled through the page and onto the next one. Just some interesting sketches. That's me again, an old sketch or doodle of me. And here we have furry art, way before I knew what furry art was. So I guess I was a furry artist before becoming the furry artist Behawk. We have an interesting scene. It looks like a guy who just walks into a situation without knowing what the hell's going on. What the hell is going on in here? Chicka, click, click. This page we have just anatomy studies, muscle structure studies, just getting used to, teaching myself how to draw. Oh, this is actually a character owned by one of my professors in college. Now, this professor was my 3D art professor, and I worked out a deal with him that I created or I did storyboards for his story. This character is called Chromic, and I believe the story was called Chromic, the Soldier in Love. And I just did his storyboards in exchange for an A. And here's the princess of that story. Like these sketches are based on like 3D renderings that he had already done. And this is just me just getting used to drawing those characters in a 2D format. Oh, this is me getting to play with Prismacolors for the first time. As you can see, it's some sort of wild child who's accustomed to killing deer out in the woods. Could be a pretty interesting story behind this illustration, but never carried it too far beyond this. Oh, just me playing around with more Prismacolors. As you can see, I'm still getting used. At this point, I was still getting used to learning how to, like, not just shade, but like playing around with colors and skin tones. And judging from the skin tone here, this woman is suffering from jaundice. Must be suffering some sort of liver damage or something. Here we have an array of sketches and doodles, just a whole page, and oh, hey, there's Sakura Kusanagi from Street Fighter series, just, smacking her ass. He's probably like one of my favorite characters in that video game. There's Natus again. And, oh, I don't know if you can see, but there's Waldo. Yeah, it's too blurry to see it, but trust me, the Waldo's right there. That's an interesting concept. Where's Waldo print panties? Maybe I should delve into that. More random doodles. Anatomical studies, leg muscle structure, panty shots, feet, hands, weird creepy face, anime chicks. Oh, excuse me. I've been getting over the same cough for the last week or so. Here we have me just messing around with. It looks like this was drawn in a ballpoint pen. Now, ballpoint pen, like I said before in some of my earlier sketchbook tours, is I would just draw in pen in order to get used to not making so many mistakes as I drew. And I believe it's a fairly good practice to just draw on ballpoint pen just to get your mind set in the whole um, idea that like each line you put down is permanent, so each line you put down had better be a very good line or the right line or close enough line. There's another drawing of me like it was me and a college buddy wanted to animate like this whole epic uh, supernatural, I guess more or less Super Saiyan battle between me and him. It got it partially got animated, but sadly that animation has gone with the wind because it belonged or it was posted on an old DeviantArt account, and that DeviantArt account is no longer. Ah, they're getting away. What the heck is this? I rule the world of microscopes and breast implants by Johnston Blackhorse. Now, that does not look like my penmanship. That does not look like I drew that. I don't know where that came from. I have no idea I drew that. But that's something that me and some college friends would do is just pass around sketchbooks and just draw in each other's sketchbook. Just another set of random sketches. After I sketched this character, like I noted that he does look like another college associate. I think I remember his name was Maxwell. It wasn't intended to look like him, but then after drawing it, like I just had to like. It sort of looks like him. It's not spot on, but it just sort of does. This is a note to myself: draw more hands. And this is just me just practicing how to draw hands. And as you can see, for the most part, it's mostly my left hand that I'm drawing. Because when trying to draw a hand for reference, I'm right-handed, so like the only hand available to me is my left hand. And usually that's what I would draw. There's another drawing of myself in a different costume or uniform on a different storyline. Random figure doodles and sketches. Just random face sketches. Surprise! You don't look so surprised. What's wrong? Did someone shit in your cereal? What's going on there, buddy? You look confused. Very confused. Man, there's something on your mind. Random anime. I think that's a dude with a mullet. I I think I might have drawn that intending it to be a chick, but it looks like just some anime dude in a mullet. Yeah. More anime style-esque characters. Another random dude. Okay, one more page and I'm going to go ahead and just end this sketchbook tour session. Just a random shin, calf, and a foot. And it looks like a guy about to get kicked in the face. Whatcha? By a headless dude. I should draw a head in there. Playing around with a weird pyramid thing. Another hand. And looks like we're almost halfway through the sketchbook, but we're at the 30-minute mark, so I'm going to go ahead and call this this sketchbook tour session done, and we'll continue this tour of this sketchbook next week. So I hope you're able to glean some sort of inspiration from this sketchbook, and maybe you were able to get some sort of deep insight or input from what I had to say by discussing like my mindset and like the process that I went through in order to attain some of the capabilities that I have now. So if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe, become a Patreon patron. I'll leave the links down at the bottom, and just keep drawing, and I'll check you guys next week. See ya.